We are in a world of potential with Martin Odegaard reaching some new form once again. But has it come at the right time and will it persist? We will find out plenty of that and more in today's Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. Just want to start the show off with a warning. Over the next few weeks, you may hear some background noise. There is some work being done on the house and it does require quite a lot of drilling and noise. I've heard it already this morning, and I think it will probably be picked up by the microphone. If it's really bad, things may obviously have to change. We might have to do this at a different time. We might have to do this slightly earlier before the builders turn up and stuff. It might change to a 7:30 show rather than an 8 show, or I'll have conversations about whether or not drilling goes on, just not during this first 20 minutes, half an hour of the day. But just bear that in mind. I haven't had any conversations about that because I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know how it's going to be affected, if at all. So just, kind of let me know if it is indeed noticeable, how noticeable, and all of the usual stuff that you'd need to let me know. But I can't say it's not going to be noticeable because I have heard it and it is quite loud. So if it stops you from actually hearing this or it's too annoying to listen to, then obviously we'll have to make some changes. But just let me know. And I look forward to hopefully it not having too much of an impact, but I fear that it probably will. Let's say hello to those in the chat box. Good morning to Barry and Barry T, back-to-back Barrys. Rowan and Jamil, Hooded Gooner, Carlton, Matt G, Black Shine, Pat, Ken, Stevie, Tom, Mr. Ree, Morgie, Natty. We got Knowledge and Christopher. We got Martin and Amira, Glenn, Brendan, Trader Mike, P Sharp, Arasilki, Bradley, Paul, Tom, Aiden. Good morning to you all, and plenty more of you guys and girls in the chat box as well. Alex has been with us now for 7 months. In fact, I think it's pretty much longer than 7 months. Maybe rejoining us a while ago, but has been with us for an uninterrupted 7-month period. Thank you to all of our members, as always, for helping support the channel. And those, of course, listening on Catch Up as well. Thank you to all of you. Let's, without further ado, jump into today's stories. Make sure you drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if indeed you are new around here with those notifications turned on. Right, let's talk about a big game this evening. Arsenal, of course, in action tonight against Real Madrid at the Emirates. Tickets are still available if you would like to attend what is hopefully going to be a really important night of women's football for Arsenal. 2-0 down from the first leg in Madrid with the controversy of that pitch, as we know. Hopefully they can get the job done. We will have to wait and see if that indeed turns out to be the case. Speaking of fixtures, though, there is an upcoming Premier League game against Bournemouth that has been chosen for TV coverage. We will see Arsenal take on Bournemouth on Saturday, the 3rd of May, but that game is now going to be moved to 5:30 p.m. So just be aware of that. There could also be some certain changes depending upon if Spurs or Man United reach the quarterfinal, or rather the semi-finals of the Europa League. That could affect our fixtures as well. So we'll be aware of that and let you know if there are any other changes to be aware of in those moments. Myles Lewis-Skelly wrote on to his social media pages a brilliant message. Said thank you to everyone that has messaged me or my Fat England for my first England camp is now done. My first time playing at Wembley, felt really proud to represent our country and scored in front of my grandma with my whole family there. I'll never forget it. I feel really happy. That's back-to-back starts, of course, to it's back-to-back starts for Myles Lewis-Skelly in this new setup, and perhaps gives us an insight into what Thomas Tuchel is looking to do with this team, looking to expect from this England side. Is Myles Lewis-Skelly going to be his choice? That is what we are waiting to find out. Very intrigued to see indeed if Myles Lewis-Skelly can become this figure for England and Arsenal, of course, as the new left back of both teams. It would be quite something to have another Arsenal Academy graduate come through. You know, those Ashley Cole memories coming back, and could we have produced perhaps an even better one? We will have to wait and see. Moving forwards to transfer news, though, and Atletico Madrid are said to be keen on Arsenal goalkeeper target Joan Garcia. Now, the difference between Arsenal's interest in Garcia and, of course, the interest from Arsenal, Atletico Madrid and Arsenal, is that Atleti see Joan Garcia, according to Spanish outlets, as potentially a successor to Jan Oblak. And that would put Arsenal at something of a disadvantage when it came to potentially signing the Spanish goalkeeper, because Arsenal see Joan Garcia as the perfect competitor and number two to, of course, David Raya. But Atletico Madrid may indeed see Joan Garcia as being more of a starting figure, in which case it would make sense that Garcia would indeed be that starting and would choose Atleti perhaps over Arsenal. This is only, of course, in the early stages, only early periods, if you like, of this. So we'll have to wait and see if that changes. We'll have to wait and see if it has a major effect. And of course, any update on this, we will wait and see for that. Moving forwards, we go next to another transfer line, and that is, of course, the highlight of yesterday's show, which is Martin Zubimendi. Martin Zubimendi is Martin Zubi going to choose Real Madrid over Arsenal? That's the question being asked by a lot of Arsenal fans, of course, because yesterday reports in Spain suggesting that Real Madrid have significantly entered the race for Martin Zubimendi. Now, we know that he is very much a Arsenal priority target for the summer. We know that Arsenal have already done a lot of work on this potential deal for Martin Zubimendi. And we know that Arsenal have said to be very confident when it comes to landing Martin Zubimendi in the summer. The problem that we've got, the problem is that Real Madrid are something of a force of nature. Real Madrid are a force unto their own sometimes. And because of that matter, of course, if Real Madrid were to come in for him, it would, I think, have an impact on Arsenal's ability to get the deal done. I think also what it stands to is those people that are perhaps doubters of Martin Zubimendi. Well, he's a player that is very much liked by Real Madrid, a player that is very much appreciated by Real Madrid, and a player, of course, that if he was to sign for Arsenal, would represent another player choosing Arsenal over Los Blancos. Very difficult, of course, to foresee any or know exactly what's going to happen at this stage. We don't know. We don't know the answer of whether or not Zubimendi will be an Arsenal player come the end of this season or not. But there has been a real feeling that he would be an Arsenal player between now, of course, and the end of the season. But Martin, that interest from Real Madrid, I think, certainly suggests how highly he is indeed rated. Lastly, though, on our agenda today is what happened last night with Martin Odegaard, of course. Sorry, by the way, if you can, let me know if you can hear anything in the background. I know my microphone has got attached to the desk, so the reverberations through the wall and into the microphone may be picked up. But just let me know if you can hear any background noise or how annoying it is or how much is detaching away from what I'm saying, because I can hear it now, of course, in the background with my headphones in. But yes, the big story of last night was Martin Odegaard specifically having what was perhaps his best performance in a Norway shirt. 3 assists back-to-back. Well, no, I don't think even they were back-to-back, but in a 4-2 win over Israel, Martin Odegaard with 3 assists to help Norway secure yet another victory. As people will be well aware of right now, Norway's results when it comes to qualifying for major tournaments have not been good. However, they sit currently top of their group right now and are looking to, qualify for the first time in a long time. They have a group with Italy in it, have not played any games so far. I'm not sure why. Why haven't Italy played any? That's really strange. Are they in the Nations League? Oh, it's the Nations League, isn't it? The Nations League is interrupted whether or not they can play. But they have Italy in their group, which does, of course, raise questions about whether or not Norway will be able to qualify as group winners. There are playoff rounds, of course, within these groups. But Norway looking to do what they have not done in decades and qualify for a major tournament. And, of course, if they are to have a chance of doing that, the likes of Martin Odegaard and Erling Haaland are going to be very, very, very important for that. Only one of his 3 assists actually came for Erling Haaland, the other 2 elsewhere. But he played in a very classic Arsenal style. There was a couple of little chipped balls over the top, setting up a few chances, but the lovely weighted balls in behind, of course, for his fellow teammates, seeing things that others simply don't. And if he is to hit form at the perfect time, well, this is the perfect time for Martin Odegaard to hit form, because with Arsenal playing his former team, Real Madrid, in the coming weeks, we could really do with him being at the top end of his form. Right, let's go to part 2 and your questions and more right after this. Right, this is part 2 of the show. We're going to be tackling some of your questions for the next 10 to 15 or 20 minutes if we're lucky. Also, so I'm looking forward to hopefully getting some really good questions. Paul says you can barely hear the noise in the background. Nick says can't hear anything. And Charlie Edition says it's not that bad. Okay. So it seems that if there is noise, that it's just in the background. And maybe we can cope with that. But again, please do let me know in the comment section if it's becoming too much of a distraction or affecting your listening experience too much. I get that, if I was my former podcasting godfather, Danny from Birdcamp Wonderland, I know would be very annoyed listening to any interruption through the audio, but this is something completely and entirely out of my control. Right, let's go into the chats, of course, and get some of your questions. Use a capital Q. It really does help them stand out. Anthony says, Tom, hope you're well. And that's it. What a lovely way to start off part 2. I'm pretty good. I've got a good day ahead of me. Another final day off of this brief holiday break, although I am back today, but still with a day off. And I've got something special going on tonight. I can't really talk about it until tomorrow. So I will talk about that, but I'll talk about it tomorrow. But it is something quite special. Nikkei says, if Zubi goes to Real Madrid, who would you take after him? That's the good question, isn't it? Who is going to be? I had someone tweet me yesterday saying that they thought they could name 20 players better than Martin Zubimendi in the number 6 position that Arsenal could sign. I mean, I've asked them who those 20 are, and so far I've not got a reply. But, of course, that does mean that there aren't, it's not to say that there aren't anybody else that could come in. I think Carlos Baleba, of course, at Brighton is a player I've really enjoyed watching this season, and maybe is someone that we have to think about considering as well. But to say that there's 20, goodness me, name them, I say. Name them. Engagement, says Arthur. Yeah, and not my engagement. I'm married, but... other than that, not that type of engagement, no. Anujit says, let us all clear the way for the force of nature. Highbury was broken down brick by brick to make us the best in the world. I'm not happy with our club just accepting this mentality that Real Madrid is better. This mentality that the most historically decorated team in the world is bigger than Arsenal. Bad mentality, that. Bad mentality. I don't know where these people get these mindsets from. It's incredibly arrogant. Natty says, what noise? I'm glad that indeed it's not really coming through. Ruben says, are the Lookman links still there? Can't help but think he seems a left-sided Bukayo Saka. Not really. We've not really heard too much regarding kind of Ademola Lookman and whether or not he is a player that we might see arrive at Arsenal in the future. But there has been a lot of noise at Atalanta that he will be leaving. Of course, he's had a strained relationship, I think, somewhat with Gasperini after some of his comments about his penalty taking. Will that affect whether or not he leaves in the summer? I would assume so. Almost seems destined to leave in the summer. So we will have to wait and see. Norris says, anyone know where I can find the highlights of the Norway match? I've been trying on YouTube, but I can only find people playing computer games. Yeah, that classic thing of where you try and find highlights. I don't know about specifically the whole game, but if you go onto social media, onto a platform known as X, you can, of course, find, if you just type in Odegaard, you should be able to find a video of all of his assists. At least I did this morning. I was watching back all of the assists from the game. From his performance, so I'm sure you should be able to find it somewhere. In fact, yes, I think I found the tweet. If you go to @KimoFC, they have tweeted all of his assists from actually not more than just his assists, actually all of his interactions and specific highlights from the game as well. So I recommend you go over there and check it out. Question from Oliver says, could the Garcia interest from Atletico be a blessing in disguise? I don't think we need to spend big on a keeper this summer, although all the players, of course, at the moment are expensive. And this is a really good question because the idea of Joan Garcia costing 20 to 25 million euros or pounds even is a lot to spend on a player that isn't really going to play too much football. He's going to be behind David Villa. He's not going to be playing too much football other than playing perhaps in the cup competitions, maybe if he's lucky, some Champions League games, or if Ryan needs a rest or is out injured, then he's going to come in. But the problem is that we've got with a goalkeeper situation is that if Raya was to get injured, it leaves us pretty vulnerable. Imagine if Neto had to play for as long as what Bukayo Saka has been out for. Imagine if it was David Raya instead of Saka that got that injury and we had to use Neto for that amount of time. That would be incredibly risky, would it not? I think for Arsenal to be in that type of position. So, yeah, I think that's something that needs to be thought about. I think we need to think about the fact that if Raya was to get an injury like so many of our other players have got this season, we need to have a competent second keeper. And while I think Neto is competent to a degree, of quality level, he's nowhere near Raya. And we need to close that gap with a number 2. So that's really, really, really important. Amaral Gunner says, Tom, spelling might be wrong, but what about Camavinga from Real Madrid? Nice. And Rice to number 6 as well. It just seemingly isn't something on Arsenal's radar, but Camavinga is a player, of course, that we have shown appreciation for in the past, but Real Madrid have absolutely not at all shown much interest in allowing him to leave. In fact, they've shown very little willingness to see him go. Tyson says, did anyone see the 10-year-old kid who scored for Chelsea against Arsenal with a rainbow flick from about 3 yards? It was absolutely brilliant. No, I've not seen that. And despite it being a Chelsea player, I would quite like to see it. Let me see if we can find it. Chelsea, Arsenal, rainbow flick. A huge goal for Chelsea is to take the lead. Look out for the knee slide celebration. Is that it? It's not that one. Rainbow flick. I'm trying to find if we can find it anywhere. Chelsea, rainbow flick. No. Can't find it. Chelsea under 10s. Oh, no, this is from 2023. I mean, there is a rainbow flick and then a penalty given away from 2023, but it's not it's not what I think we were thinking about. But yeah, no, I can't find it. But apparently, quite a good goal. Axel says, dream window for everyone here. Fun to hear random suggestions. For me, it's Garcia, Bruno Guimaraes, Williams, and Isak. That's going to be very unlikely, but would be a hell of a window. Russ says, do we really want to be in the position of having 2 first-choice keepers again? It didn't really work too well. I think the difference is here, Russ, is that if we sign Joan Garcia, for instance, he is coming in knowing David Raya is number 1. When we signed David Raya, the expectation, I think, from his side is that I think he was sold very much the idea that he would become Arsenal's number 1. I think whoever we sign is going to be given very much the brief that they are coming in to be Arsenal's current number 2, maybe with a long-term view that they could overtake Raya in the long term. But I think that that's the difference now, Russ, between the Ramsdale situation from before and whatever happens this summer with the number 2 goalkeeper. I think whoever we spend money on is going to be someone that very much knows Raya is the undisputed number 1 and is coming in much like Stefan Ortega did at Man City with Ederson. That's how I think it would probably go. Arthur says, Tom, I've got a soft spot for Thomas Partey. If our transfer budget is not enough, why don't we keep Partey, Baez, Nico Williams, Sesko, and a goalie? Again, it's this idea that we have been very lucky when it comes to injuries with Partey recently, and it almost feels like it's a matter of time till something else happens. He's also a major kind of wage part of the squad. And if we were to stick with Partey for another season, of course, and you take that responsibility of giving him a new contract and then gets injured or is absent, there is obviously issues with having done that. I think we go down the safer route, allow his contract to expire and bring in a younger, more reliable in terms of attendance replacement of a really good standing, of which Zubimendi, of course, is. Luke says, do you think any transfers for all teams have the World Cup and playtime on their minds? Oh, sorry, world class is actually World Cup. Have the World Cup and playtime on their minds. Does that affect how Mikel Arteta convinces them to join Arsenal? Without a doubt, the World Cup is always going to feature in players' minds. If they're joining a club, they want to know not only are they going to get game time, but perhaps they're playing at a club that gives them a greater standing in their teams. Could it be that Martin Zubimendi playing for Arsenal gives him a better opportunity than playing over Rodri in the future because he's playing in the Premier League? And if he's performing at a higher standard maybe than Rodri is for Man City next season, if Rodri is indeed back, does that give Zubimendi a chance to, of course, break into the starting 11 of the Spanish side more often? Maybe. And of course, that applies for if he was to move to Real Madrid, I think, of course, as well. Damien says, how far away from being a number 2 is Setford? Quite away. He's only 18, 19, I think, years of age. He's still a long way from, I think, that reality, even just at number 2. But maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Arteta rates him higher than currently we've seen much from him. Shane says, Tom, how is the atmosphere at the Emirates lately? I'm going to the Brentford game in April, but lately it looks a little bit flat on the TV. I will be real with you. You know, the PSV game was dull, but it was a game where we were already 7-1 up and a bit of a formality. I think the Premier League atmospheres are going to be something of a struggle. Of course, we'll see how it is next week. We've got Fulham at home, and that's something that we need to think about and how that atmosphere might be next week, but we will see. But I think the atmosphere is a little tricky right now because there has been some real disappointment with how Arsenal performed from a domestic point of view. But those European nights, the Champions League game against Real Madrid, should be something rather special. Let's scroll up a little bit more. I think I may have missed Paul's question. England back four will consist of Ben White, Myles Lewis-Skelly, and Aidan Heaven. That will be a proud day. As an Arsenal fan for me, Tom, will you feel the same? I'll certainly feel that about Lewis-Skelly and White. Heaven has left the club. He's gone to Man United. Yes, he came through our academy, and there's some pride in that. But he's gone. I don't really have much of an attachment, an emotion about Aidan Heaven, nor do I about any younger player who leaves at such a young age to go somewhere else and signs for another club. I'm always keeping maybe more of an eye than I am on another random 17-year-old player at somebody else. But yeah, again, once they've left Arsenal, they're kind of gone. But certainly it'll be proud to see Myles Lewis-Skelly and White in Arsenal's first team. And I think with Kyle Walker still playing, I think Kyle Walker's been called up because Ben White's not quite ready yet. But when he is ready, I think White will be in that team. And I think Tuchel said that he sees that there's kind of a willingness, if you like, from Ben White for that to happen. Tyler says, I'm a real fan of Tonali at Newcastle, more so than Bruno. What are your thoughts? I don't know if Tonali is the right profile of player for Arsenal, of course, in the midfield necessarily. I don't see them selling him either. Although I'm just looking at Newcastle United will not entertain offers for Sandro Tonali this summer, despite growing interest. So it's said that they will not be entertaining any offers at all for Tonali. King says, is it confirmed how long Calafiori is out for? The last we've heard, reports from Italy have suggested 2 to 3 weeks. That's what we've heard so far on that side of things. Anton says, Tuchel does like Reece James at right back. He does. And of course, from his time at Chelsea, we probably will see plenty of Reece James as well playing. But maybe Ben White can force his way into the group. Let's wait and see. Amberley says, good chance given Reece James sadly can't seem to stay fit, though, for more than a few games at a time as well. It's very, very true. And Damien says, what do you make of Liverpool fans' meltdown over Trent Alexander-Arnold? Can you imagine some Arsenal fans' reactions if it was Bukayo Saka? I can definitely imagine that, because I've seen Arsenal fans, in inverted quotation marks, racially abuse Bukayo Saka. So, yeah, I can definitely imagine that happening. But it is still, just in isolation, just to talk about the Trent Alexander-Arnold side of things, of course, it's entirely embarrassing from a Liverpool point of view for some of their fans to have reacted in the way that they have reacted. I don't think Trent's done anything wrong, to be honest. If William Saliba leaves Arsenal at the end of his Arsenal contract and goes to Real Madrid, I'm not going to begrudge him of that. That'll be a choice of his. He would have given, since he was 18, moving into the side at 20 years of age, 21 years of age, he would have given at least 5 years of playing service to Arsenal, hopefully with trophies in that amount of time. And if he decides that he doesn't want to renew because he wants to move to Real Madrid at the end of his contract, then so be it. It's, yes, he's grown up as an Arsenal fan, so there's that attachment there. But these are footballers. They're their own players. They've got their own lives. They're not fans in the same way that we are fans. I'd be if Arsenal, say, received an offer for Saliba in his final year of his contract for like 100 million plus, turned that down and then saw him leave for a free in the summer following that, I would be incredibly frustrated at Arsenal more than I would at Saliba, But of course, we're only reliant upon that happening if a team does come in with an offer. It may be that no club does, because they'll be made aware that Saliba is happy to see out his contract at Arsenal and then move on. It'll be very frustrating, but it is what it is. There, of course, are going to be some insecure little children that decide to abuse these people because they think that that's a fine thing to do in this day and age. But, when it comes to footballers, that they have their own careers, they can do as they please. I don't know if you saw these recent quotes from Jed Spence coming out talking about, kind of laughing about Gabriel Martinelli and whatever. If you want to get annoyed by that, get annoyed by that. But I'm going to let you, because I couldn't care less, to be honest, what Jed Spence thinks about anything. And the only thing I care about ultimately is Arsenal and moving forwards. And if a player decides to move on, like we saw just a second ago talking about Aidan Heaven, then they move on. And we move on. And we move on to the next thing. Joe says, apparently Liverpool offered Trent £350,000 per week, and at Madrid he is only going to be on £225,000 per week, but a big signing on fee. I don't get it, as Trent has been quite quiet. Salah has been discussing it very openly. I think there's a feeling that Salah will probably stay, as opposed to Trent. I think there's been a real acceptance that Trent will be leaving. He's leaving not for money. Yes, there'll be a signing on fee for him, but he's not leaving necessarily for money in the same. He's moving on because he wants a new challenge. He wants to play for Real Madrid. He's won everything he can win with Liverpool. He's come through at that club as a youngster. He has taken that club with his performances and his contributions to Champions League wins, to Premier League wins, to FA Cup wins, to League Cup wins. He's won everything he can win with Liverpool. And that would have been an ambition as him as a child. But almost for any player you talk to, the dream is always to play for a club like Real Madrid as well. I don't think you can really begrudge that. If he was moving to another Premier League team, then 100% you could. You could begrudge them of that. That's why I begrudged Alexis Sanchez when he moved to Man United, or when I begrudged Robin Van Persie for the same thing, or when Nasri went to Manchester City. I begrudge those players because they've abandoned Arsenal for another English club. It's not the same, and of course they never won anything prior, other than Alexis winning the FA Cup prior to those moves. So that's the issue that I've got on that side of things. The issue that I've got is that those players left for another Premier League team without really achieving anything besides Alexis at Arsenal. And of course, with Alexis and Man United, it was very much a money thing as well. The money was huge. And he admitted almost immediately that he wanted to return to Arsenal as soon as he made that decision, but too late. I think when it comes to moving abroad, like Thierry Henry, when Thierry Henry left to join Barcelona, there was sadness. Yes, he was, I think, 3 years older than Trent when he did leave Arsenal. But I think the reaction there was very, very different. So if they decide to leave for another Premier League team, I think it's a different conversation. But if a player has won everything they can win and given you so much in their time that they have been there, and now they have got the opportunity to join the biggest club in the world, which is Real Madrid, and play with some of the world's best, having already played for your childhood club, I can't begrudge a player of that. Maybe it's easy for me to say because it's not happening to us right now, but it might in the future. It's very hard to begrudge anybody of that. Cassis, I'm with you on this one, Tom. If Saliba or any other player moves on from Arsenal, I will not begrudge them. It's a short career. Players move on like managers, sporting directors, fans don't. The only thing that is a constant at a club 99% of the time is the fans. That's the only constant. The fans are the only constants. The only thing you can be near guaranteed of. Some will turn their back on the club. Some will leave. Some will wish even Arsenal lose games for their own agendas. But when it comes to the 99% and the genuine supporters amongst the fan base, we're the only constant. We're the only things that will persist and will keep going always. So that's the only thing that you can stay almost near guaranteed of, certainly in your own fandom, or at least I hope so, of Arsenal. So there you go. Nikkei says, our long-term goal should be to become a club like Real Madrid, attract world-class players to come and stay. We need trophies to achieve this, and our current team could take us towards that. Ultimately, it's going to be very hard to ever get on the level of Real Madrid's. Real Madrid have been the biggest club in the world for a long time. The trophies they won, the Champions League they've picked up, has put them into the position of where they are as a club. The days of Butragueño or Di Stefano or Ronaldo, these eras of players, these eras of success have ultimately given them from 1995, 6 all the way to 23, 24. And these periods where they've won 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, back-to-back 5 Champions League trophies. And then again in 66, and then again in 98 and 2000 and 02, 14, 16, 17, 18, 22, 24. Like, when I witnessed La Decima as just a watcher of football, that just seemed mental to me. But ultimately, so much of what had happened in Real Madrid's history happened before I was really consciously watching football or even alive. So the idea that some Arsenal fans think that we should be raising our standards or thinking about Arsenal on the same terms as Real Madrid, you have to be honest. Like, even Juventus is a bigger club than Arsenal. What Juventus have won, yes, there's been some unsavory things in their history, but at the end of the day, you look at the honours that they've won. They have 36 Serie A titles. They've won the Champions League on 2 occasions amongst loads of other competitions. But yet some Arsenal fans have complexes that think that Arsenal are the greatest and are the best because that's who they support. The reality is not that. Arsenal have to do everything they can to try and put themselves within those brackets. And the ironic thing is, despite all of the criticism surrounding Mikel Arteta, of course, as well, he is the guy that has taken Arsenal back into the relevancy of being a title challenger, having the opportunity to win the Champions League, having the opportunity to win the Premier League again, has come about because of the last 5 years of work that have gone into putting Arsenal back into this fold. So it kind of comes back around to the manager conversation, because until that changes, until that no longer looks like that is the case, that is what will persist in looking at the situation that we are at. And so that's what we need. The summer is not going to be about a rebuild. This summer transfer window is 100% about winning. This summer should not be about signing for the future. This summer transfer window is Arteta saying this project is at its point. This project is at its period where you invest to win. That is what this summer is all about. And I will be extremely disappointed if this summer does not amount to that. And it will be a categoric failure if this summer is not that. And that's why I really hope that we're in a position to celebrate that period. Speaking of which, happy birthday to Mikel Arteta as well. And thank you so much, as always, for watching. Really appreciate your time. Hopefully you've not heard too much noise in the background. If you have, apologies for that. It's out of my control. But I think it was okay. Didn't seem to get too many, if any, complaints in the chat box, which is a good sign. But have an absolutely fantastic Wednesday. Enjoy yourselves. I'll be back with you tomorrow, hopefully discussing what I can now discuss tomorrow morning, which is a very exciting thing. Very much looking forward to it. And I'll share with you tomorrow some details of it and more, of course, in the future. Have a fantastic day. Enjoy yourself. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.